I came home on a Tuesday. I wasn't supposed to be home. The lake was quiet, the house was too, and on the foyer marble I saw a rusty smear like someone had dragged a knee and tried to wipe it up. My 6-year-old Lila stepped into the stairlight, with blue lips and a stare that didn't know where to land, and behind me my wife Serena set down a glass of red wine like it was any other late morning, and said calm as a weather report she needed to learn to obey. Something in me snapped without a sound, like a string cut inside a piano, and I knew the music I'd been hiding behind couldn't save us this time. I'm Miles Carter. I write scores for a living. I used to think if I kept the notes busy enough, they'd drown out the grief of losing Lila's mom. And when Serena showed up in my life, all sharp edges and brilliant solutions, I told myself a competent person would make us safe, you know what I mean? Rules crept in like fog across Echo Ridge. No humming while Dad writes no crayons at breakfast. No toys in the living room. And our housekeeper, Rosa, would give me this quiet look over the kitchen island that asked, "Are you actually seeing what's happening when you're on the road?" The morning I flew out for a festival, Lila held up a crayon drawing, 3 stick figures under a big yellow sun, and tapped the smallest one. "That's me, that's you, and that's Mommy," with her violin, and Serena folded the paper in half, like a bank teller slid it into a drawer, and said, "Daddy has a call in 2 minutes." I kissed my kid and promised a song. When I got back, then pretended not to hear my own plane taking off inside my chest. While I was gone, Lila walked to the birches by the water with an old stuffed rabbit, a little ritual we keep for missing. Her mom and Serena dragged her back up the hill, heel first, a red welt blooming around that tiny wrist like a cruel bracelet. And then came the sentence that tells you everything about a person. 3 days, no food. Rosa argued, cried, threatened to call me, and Serena fired her on the spot. Shut Lila in her room with a glass of water and the lights off, and the kind of soft voice that doesn't sound like abuse until you can't crawl past it. And my kid scratched 4 words into chipped paint with a hair clip. Still here. The second night it rained, and the lake shoved wind against the reeds, and Lila sang to herself to stay awake. That's what she told me later, whisper small daddy. I sang the star song, so I wouldn't lose the notes, and on the 3rd morning I came home early, put down a silver music box, and caught my girl before she fell. Serena said, I was overreacting, said fear makes children manageable. Said she gave Lila a lesson, and I told her she gave my daughter a memory she'd spend years trying to forgive. Then I carried Lila to Dr. Ben's clinic, a converted craftsman behind a diner that still uses paper menus, and Ben warmed her hands in his like he was reheating faith. Dehydration, low-sugar stress. Not fatal, but intentional. Whoever did this wanted her afraid. And that word wanted hit me like a wrong note slammed to wake a crowd. And that's when Rosa showed up, soaked and shaking, sing with a little voice recorder that had been in her apron pocket when she was pushed out. And we played Serena's voice back into that small room, not shouting. Just clean and cruel, say it again, and I'll teach you what a week feels like then. A breathy little sob. That was my child. And I put my head in my hands and broke in the one place I always tried not to. Be a good man, Rosa said. But don't be a quiet one. So I called Child Protective Services, and the sheriff, and a woman named Donna Keene came with a notepad and eyes that saw through walls, plus Owen from cyber, a guy who talks to routers like they're people. And while they were mapping next steps, a padded envelope showed up at Ben's door, no return, just a paper crane folded from sheet music, the notes from my old hit, and typed on one wing, in crooked letters. You chose her over me. Owen squinted at the postage. Dana looked at me, and I remembered Serena's beloved Olivetti with the S that always sat low left like a sulking child. And yeah, that happened. The kind of realization that makes your stomach tilt. I wanted it handled quiet. No headlines with my kid's name. Dana said. The law doesn't keep secrets forever, but she'd try. We set a plan for surveillance at my place then at 10:41 p.m. My phone pinged with a photo of Lila sleeping on a couch. Come to the dock alone at 11. If you want her safe, and Dana said the photo looked old they're playing. You don't take the bait. And I said, I heard her, and I went anyway, because there is thought you do in daylight and math you do at night, when you are a father, and the wind is pushing water like a sleeper breathing. We staged cars in the trees, a van with gear by the boathouse. 2 deputies near the path. I walked the gravel with my hands where they could see them. The lake a black mirror with a pulse, and a man stepped from behind the canoes, with a ruined boxer nose and eyes that refused to settle. Holding up a phone with a live feed of a little girl on a couch, say, You're sorry, he said. Sorry for what? Sorry. You ruined me, and he hovered his thumb over the screen. Like one press could drop us both into hell. And I told him the truth you use when you're stealing seconds. You don't need me sorry. You need me scared. And he smiled without heat and said that too. Dana whispered, Hold 2 more seconds. I took 1 step closer and told him he was just a session player in someone else's composition. No liner notes. When she was done with him, and from the left, flood beams cut the night. Sheriff's office, drop it. And in the same heartbeat, my house alarm went insane, and Owen snapped breech at the studio west window. And whatever you think I should have done, I was already running. Kitchen door jamb cracking under my shoulder up the stairs, curtain breathing by a busted latch. A man crossing with Lila's legs kicking wild under his arm. Let her go and he bolted for the back. Dana met him on the corner, full flashlight to the eyes, a flinch, small as a hiccup, enough for Lila to twist down and scramble enough for me to slide like a bad ball player, and wrap her up enough for a knife to clatter, and bodies to slam tile, and for 3 of us to hit the wet grass, gulping air like it was the last clean thing left. They cuffed the man in the flower beds, and he laughed at the dirt. She's not finished, and Serena was already 2 roads away in a borrowed sedan. But not for long, because the next afternoon, they picked her up at a storage unit, behind a strip mall full of bad lighting and stale popcorn, and inside the unit were my old press clippings. Lila's school schedules, a folder labeled Strategy, with obedience underlined 3 times, and the typewriter tied with twine like a pet on a leash. In court, the ceiling fan clicked a tired rhythm, and the prosecutor played. The audio walked through bank transfers to the man and to a bookkeeper named Nina, who cried into a tissue and said she just needed to clear a debt. And then Serena stood to speak like there was a podium. Only she could see I believed I was being replaced. He promised me a life and then poured himself into songs about ghosts. I thought if I made the child understand who makes the rules, maybe he'd hear me. I was wrong. And she looked at me like the world owed her a second take. You made me believe I belonged, and then you made me invisible. I didn't tell her she was wrong about my absences. I have sat in a room and been 1,000 miles away, but there are lines we do not cross in our worst seasons, and the judge had gravel in his voice when he read it. Conspiracy to kidnap, extortion, child endangerment. 18 years, no parole. And the gavel landed like a soft door closing on a room that did not need us anymore. Outside, cameras threw questions like rice at a wedding. I put my jacket over Lila's head and counted her breaths in the rear view. And life after that wasn't fireworks. It was pancakes at the diner with crayons on placemats, therapy and early pickups. Rosa back in the kitchen with a pan of cinnamon rolls. Me at the piano, learning music, can be a light and not an escape hatch. And 2 years later, we opened the Echo Ridge Workshop in a renovated canoe barn where kids scratch first scales and hit drums too loud and grin like they invented rhythm, while my daughter says softer now, listen to the air, not your hands. A day before our first recital, an envelope came with no return inside a single sheet of blank staves. No notes, no crane, just silence on paper. Maybe from a troll, maybe from a fan, maybe from a ghost, Dana said. Probably nothing, and I almost believed her. But that night, I stood by the lake and listened to the wind, and thought about how many of us grew up on lines like fear is a good teacher. It's for your own good, and how easy it is to let the loudest person in a house set the rules, and how hurt turns into theology. If you keep feeding it in the dark, and how justice isn't the end, it's the start of choosing a different sound. That's my story, and now it's yours too, if you want it. So tell me in the comments where you draw the line. Was Serena evil or broken? Or both? Did the court land it right? Or light? Would you have gone to the dock? Or waited in the trees? Do you believe fear teaches or just bruises? And if you've ever been the kid who scratched, "I am still here" into a wall, or the parent who didn't see until it almost broke you, say so, I'm listening. We all are.